I met Madison at a rooftop networking event in downtown Austin. The city lights reflected off her glass of champagne. She laughed like she owned the place. Tall, blonde highlights, perfect tan, flawless makeup. She had that kind of beauty that makes everyone stop for a second. She said she was a lifestyle influencer. 15,000 followers. Just building my brand, she said with a wink. I thought she was ambitious. I was wrong. She asked about real estate investments and smiled every time I spoke. I didn't realize she wasn't listening to my words, just my income. She followed me on Instagram that same night. Within a day, she was liking every post. By the weekend, we were having dinner at a rooftop restaurant. She didn't touch her food, only posed for pictures. When the bill came, she just smiled and said, "You've got this right." I did. And I kept doing it again and again. At first, it felt harmless. She made me feel important. She called me driven, successful, disciplined. After years of quiet relationships, that kind of attention was addictive. She said she wanted to see the real me. But what she really wanted was the life that came with me. Fancy dinners, designer clothes, weekends at resorts. It was all part of her content. I became her favorite prop. She'd take selfies in my truck, captions like "My man spoils me." Her followers called us goals. I called it love. When she started leaving her wallet at home, I didn't mind. When she picked restaurants with $100 entrees, I went along. When she said, "You make me feel safe," I felt proud. The truth was, she made me feel needed. And I mistook that for love. Her flattery was constant and calculated. "You're the most ambitious man I've ever met. You're not like other guys. You make me feel like I can breathe." I believed her because I wanted to. Every warning sign looked like affection to me. The first real red flag came when she got angry at a waitress. I'd smiled when the waitress complimented my watch. Madison's expression froze. Later that night, she said, "You liked that, didn't you?" I laughed it off. She didn't. The next day, she posted a story about fake women who chase taken men. I ignored it. It was easier that way. I kept telling myself she was just passionate. She kept telling herself she owned me. The gifts grew more expensive. The dates got more dramatic. Every "I love you" came with a new demand. A new dress. A new trip. A new test of loyalty. By the time I realized what she was doing, it was already too late. She had woven herself into every corner of my life. Friends said she was too much. I said they didn't understand her. But deep down, I knew they were right. Madison wasn't in love with me. She was in love with what I could give her. And I was too blind to stop it. Madison moved in 6 months after we started dating. She said her lease was ending, and it just made sense. I thought it meant we were getting serious. It meant I was giving her full control. At first, it felt like a dream. She decorated the living room, filled the fridge with fancy snacks, and called it our home. But within a week, the tone changed. She started asking where I was going every time I grabbed my keys. She timed how long I spent at the gym. If I was late by 10 minutes, she demanded to see my phone. "Who were you with?" she asked, voice sweet but sharp. When I laughed it off, she'd cry and accuse me of hiding something. It became easier to apologize than to argue. She said it was about trust. But really, it was about control. She wanted passwords, access, explanations. I gave them all because love, right? She said love means transparency. But transparency to her meant surveillance. I couldn't take a shower without hearing her voice outside the door. "You've been in there too long, Ethan." When I came out, she'd check my phone again. Once, she accused me of cheating because I liked a coworker's post about real estate. She said professional women were threats. I tried to reason with her. She twisted every word into an argument. If I stayed quiet, she said I was cold. If I spoke up, she said I was defensive. There was no way to win. Her jealousy turned into rage, then guilt, then affection, then rage again. It was a cycle that left me exhausted. I stopped inviting friends over. She said they didn't like her. In truth, she made sure they wouldn't. When my neighbor Mark came by to help fix the deck, she hovered near the window, watching. Later, she asked if I thought his wife was pretty. It wasn't a question. It was a test. I failed it. Every day became another test. My work suffered. I stopped focusing. I spent hours trying to calm her down after imaginary fights. If I texted too slow, she'd send 10 messages in a row. If I worked late, she'd show up at my office unannounced. She called it love. I called it chaos. The scariest part was how normal it started to feel. I learned to anticipate her moods. I learned to lie about harmless things just to avoid conflict. I was at the gym, turned into I was stuck in traffic. It was easier than explaining why I deserved an hour alone. She called herself passionate, but what she really was paranoid. She wanted to own every second of my day. One night, she accused me of smiling too much while texting a client. She said, "You only laugh like that when you're flirting." I realized then that she didn't trust anyone, not even herself. I told her I needed space. She said, "Space means distance. Distance means lies." That was the first time I felt fear, not love. And it was the first time I started thinking about leaving. It happened on a Tuesday night. I was working in my home office, finishing a major contract worth $80,000. Madison had been packing around the kitchen, upset about something I didn't do. She knocked on my door and shouted, "Why is it locked?" I said I needed 2 hours of quiet to finish the deal. She said quiet meant secrets. Before I could react, she burst in, eyes wild, hands shaking. "You're texting another woman, aren't you?" "I'm working," I said. She didn't believe me. In seconds, she grabbed my laptop from the desk. I reached out to stop her, but she hurled it against the wall. The crack echoed through the house like a gunshot. 3 months of work, gone in one throw. I stood there frozen. She started crying, saying I made her do it. That she felt ignored. That I cared more about money than love. I couldn't even speak. All I felt was disbelief. When she finally stormed out, I stared at the broken screen on the floor. It looked exactly like how I felt inside, shattered. The next morning, I sat alone in silence. No noise, no yelling, no chaos. Just me and the sound of my own breathing. It was peaceful, terrifying, and liberating all at once. My neighbor Mark came over with lunch. He saw the hole in the wall and raised an eyebrow. "Looks like you hosted a football game in here," he said. I told him everything. He listened quietly, then said, "You know she's been treating you like a punching bag, right?" I laughed, but it wasn't funny. He told me to change the locks and cut her off completely. That afternoon, I did exactly that. New locks, new passwords, new security cameras. I thought it was over. At 6 that evening, Madison texted, "Pick me up from dinner. I'm ready to go home." I didn't reply. Then came another text. "Don't be childish, Ethan." Still nothing. By 9, she was at my front door, banging furiously. "Why doesn't my key work?" "The locks are changed," I said through the door. "You can't do this to me," she screamed. "I just did," I said. She cried, yelled, begged, then threatened. 20 minutes of chaos. Mark stepped out onto his porch, arms crossed, silent witness. Finally, she left. When I walked outside, I saw a fresh set of scratches down my truck's side. Deep, deliberate, cruel. $2,000 of damage. That was when I knew she wasn't going to walk away quietly. The next few days, she bombarded me with texts. 89 messages in one day. Anger, apologies, seduction, threats, then silence. The cycle repeated every night. She said I'd regret losing her, that I'd come crawling back. But for the first time in 3 years, I slept without fear. And I knew there was no going back. The next week felt like living in a psychological war zone. Madison refused to disappear. She turned obsession into strategy. The first attack came through my phone. Dozens of messages every morning, each one more unstable than the last. Anger, guilt, seduction, then rage again. She said I ruined her life. She said I owed her closure. She said she was the victim. I stopped reading them. That's when she changed tactics. Monday morning, my boss called me into his office. He looked pale and uncomfortable. "Ethan, a doctor just called saying you were in an accident. Are you okay?" I stared at him. "I'm fine. What doctor?" He handed me a sticky note with the name, Dr. Sarah Chen. It was Madison pretending to be a hospital staff member. She'd called my company claiming I was unconscious. By Tuesday, a fake banker called asking about suspicious withdrawals. Wednesday, a woman claimed to be my sister, warning my job I'd had a breakdown. Thursday, it was the IRS. Friday, a lawyer threatening harassment charges. All Madison. All lies. By the 5th day, my boss said, "This needs to stop. People are getting nervous." I showed him the messages, the proof, the harassment trail. He nodded and said, "Document everything. If she calls again, we'll involve legal." That night, Mark dropped by. "She's not your ex anymore, Ethan," he said. "She's a criminal." I wanted to believe it wasn't that bad. But it was. Madison began showing up everywhere I went. At the gym, she wore tight leggings and pretended not to notice me. When I moved to another machine, she followed. When I left early, she followed me to the parking lot. At the grocery store, she appeared in every aisle. "Ethan, what are the odds?" she'd say, pretending to laugh. At my favorite bar, she sat down at my table uninvited. "Just here for the game," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mark leaned over. "Lady, he told you to leave," he said firmly. She glared at him. He crossed his arms. "You keyed his truck," he added. Her expression cracked for a second. Then she turned the camera on herself and started recording. "He's harassing me," she shouted. People stared. She stormed out, spilling her drink across my food. That night, she posted a story online. She called me controlling, manipulative, abusive. She said I'd isolated her. Her followers believed her. Strangers sent me hate messages. It hit me then. She wasn't just trying to get me back. She wanted to destroy me. Every part of my life, career, friendships, reputation, became a target. I realized love hadn't turned her into a monster. It had simply revealed the one she always was. And I knew if I didn't fight back soon, she'd take everything. A month after cutting Madison off, I decided to try living again. Not dating for revenge, but for peace. I downloaded Bumble one quiet Sunday night. After days of swiping through noise, I met Olivia. Her profile was simple, no filters, no drama. She was a software developer who loved hiking and dogs. Her first message was a joke about my hiking photo. It felt real, not forced. We talked for a week before meeting for coffee downtown. She asked about work, family, and travel, not money. She listened. She laughed. She paid for her own drink. That shocked me more than I expected. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a wallet. We walked by the river after coffee, talking about small things. I told her about Madison, carefully, honestly. She didn't flinch. She said, "That's not a bad breakup, that's trauma." She told me to keep evidence, protect myself, and stay alert. Her calm made me feel safe again. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other regularly. Movies, dinners, road trips. Simple things that didn't cost thousands of dollars. Olivia never asked for anything. She just showed up and cared. I didn't know how much I'd miss that. But peace doesn't last long when chaos has your number. Madison found out. I don't know how. Maybe mutual friends or my online posts. Suddenly, the messages started again. Wow, really traded down, didn't you? She looks like a man. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you lost. I showed Olivia the texts. She just smiled and said, she's scared. That's her problem, not yours. Madison didn't stop there. She called Olivia's office, pretending to be my pregnant ex. Said I was violent. Said she wanted to warn them. Olivia's boss blocked the number, but it was terrifying. Madison began messaging my clients on LinkedIn. She told them I was mentally unstable. That crossed a legal line. My company's legal team sent her a cease and desist. For a few days, everything went quiet. Then, I started getting notifications from my bank and Amazon. Unauthorized purchases. Account password changes. Someone ordered thousands of dollars in makeup and clothes. It was Madison again. She even hijacked my Spotify and replaced my playlists with breakup songs. Mark thought it was darkly funny. I didn't. It was harassment with a smile. Then came the fake police report. She claimed I stole jewelry from her apartment. Cops showed up at my house. I showed them everything: emails, threats, legal letters. The detective said, she's escalating, you need protection. I knew he was right. Madison had turned from a jealous ex into a full-blown predator. But I wasn't her victim anymore. This time, I was ready to fight back. And karma was finally catching up to her. 2 weeks later, Madison launched her final act of madness. A GoFundMe campaign appeared online. Its title read, "Help me escape my abusive ex." My full name and photo were right there on the page. She wrote that I'd isolated her, stolen her money, and destroyed her life. She said I was dangerous and controlling. It was all lies. But the internet loves a victim. In 2 days, she raised over $4,000. People who didn't know me shared her post everywhere. She even emailed the link to my company's HR department. My neighbor Mark called me first. "Ethan, you need to see this," he said, half furious, half amused. I read the story in disbelief. She twisted every memory into fiction. She said I forced her to quit her job. She never had one. She said I controlled her social media. Hers was still public. She said I banned her from family visits. Photos proved the opposite. Olivia refused to let her get away with it. She and her friends started gathering evidence. Every post, every video, every caption Madison ever made. Screenshots of her bragging about the gifts I bought. Clips of her yelling, "You care more about work than me," before throwing my laptop. Even her highlight reels, showing spa days and shopping trips I paid for. We sent everything to GoFundMe's fraud department. Within 48 hours, the page was shut down. Her account was flagged for deception. The money had to be refunded. Worse for her, the company launched a fraud investigation. They demanded repayment of all funds, plus processing fees. She'd already spent it on makeup and clothes. She was now in debt to a corporation. Then came the real consequences. Filing false claims for money is a crime. She was charged with online fraud. Her social media accounts got suspended. Her small influencer income disappeared overnight. Without her fake glamour, the real Madison fell apart. She couldn't pay rent and got evicted. She moved back in with her parents. And her father's construction company started losing contracts. The rumors spread fast. No one wanted to work with a man whose daughter was under criminal investigation. When I heard she'd lost everything, I felt something strange. Not joy. Not guilt. Just closure. Then one night, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered, and it was her. Her voice was cracked, small, defeated. "Ethan, please, I need your help. she said. She said her father's business was collapsing because of her. She begged me to call people, to fix it, to make it go away. I let her speak until she ran out of excuses. Then I said quietly, "This isn't revenge, Madison. This is consequence." She cried. I hung up. She called 6 more times. I never answered again. Weeks later, Mark saw her at a grocery store. She was working as a cashier, pale and tired. He said she didn't even look like the same person. I didn't feel sorry, because karma had simply finished what I couldn't. And for the first time in years, my life was finally my own. Months passed after that final call. The chaos faded, replaced by peace I'd forgotten how to feel. No more fake numbers, no more fear of the next knock on my door. Olivia and I kept building something real, something quiet. We laughed without checking our phones. We slept without waiting for another storm. Sometimes I'd think about Madison. Not with anger, but with clarity. She once said I couldn't live without her. But now she was the one barely surviving. Working long hours, living back home, paying debts she created. Her fall wasn't my victory. It was her lesson. Because love built on control always collapses. And lies can only shine until truth catches up. One evening, I drove past that old rooftop bar where we first met. The city lights looked the same, but I was. I'd learned that peace doesn't come from perfect people. It comes from walking away when it hurts to stay. Madison lost everything she faked. I found everything I'd forgotten. Freedom, love, and silence. And that silence was worth more than any apology she could ever give.